Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, March the 15th, the Ides of March. I am your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me here, either via the archive or live on Wednesday evening. Appreciate you however you choose to tune into the show. As always, send emails to onair at Your Mac Life Show during the live show, yourmaclifeshow.com for the emails during the live show, or Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com during the week. Either ad just works anytime you'd like. I get it all. So send me emails if you have any comments or questions or just to say hi. Something I think mean to mention every now and then to you folks, no matter who it is or what podcast it is, when you think about it, send a note to the podcaster or the developer or whoever it might be, just telling them that, hey, thinking about you, like you, we like that kind of stuff. Trust me. We can't get enough of that kind of thing. Dave D says, Shawn, thanks for the reminder to change my camera clock. Yeah, I did the same thing. I didn't change my clock either. Yeah, hopefully you're all past daylight savings times by now. On tonight's show, as always, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about the week's news. We're also going to be doing another interview. You guys seem to like them. I'm getting back into the groove of doing them. Dan Moren. Dan used to write for Macworld Magazine, still writes for Macworld.com, writes for Six Colors and a bunch of other places. He has written a new book, soon to be published. This is not a do-it-yourself book. This is a legitimate book called The Caledonian Gambit. It is a sci-fi book. Dan's a nerd, so of course he wrote sci-fi. We're going to talk to him about the book, about writing, and about his career in the Macintosh community. And later on in the show, in our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about these things: camera flashes, how to use them, when to use them, and how to get a really, really stupidly good deal on them. We'll talk about that later on in starting point photography. But first up, some sad news. Some of you know him, most of you probably don't. There is a guy near and dear to my heart named Tom Negrino. Tom died today. Tom took his own life today. Tom voluntarily did that today. Tom has been around for eons in the Macintosh community. He's been a great friend to everyone who's involved in the Macintosh community, and everyone loves Tom. He has written, I think, almost 50 books, 46 books Tom has written for the Macintosh community for various subjects and in various genres, Take Control books and other books like that. Tom was born with spina bifida, and it didn't slow him down. I've known Tom for 20 years, and if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. Tom was at every Macworld Expo. He's one of those guys that you went to Macworld Expo to go see. You were very, very happy to see him and Dory, the inseparable Tom and Dory. The two words almost go together, Tom and Dory. They wrote a lot of their books together, by the way. Dory is as prolific an author as Tom is. And I guess about 5 years ago, back up a little bit, Tom was a huge help to me during the bad time of my divorce. Tom talked to me on the phone for hours. The one thing I loved most about Tom was he was very much like me, a no bullshit kind of guy. And he virtually slapped me in the head several times. Basically, snap out of it kind of thing. Get your ass out of your head and get on with your life. And I love Tom for that. We communicated, once a month via email about this, that, or next thing, and frequently on Twitter. And I think the timeline goes about 5 years ago, Tom started to get very, very sick and was diagnosed with multiple forms of cancer, brain cancer, kidney cancer. It metastasized throughout his entire body. And then I think about a year ago, it got really bad. Tom was bedridden, late in his life. He was sleeping 20 hours a day. And my thoughts go to Tom's entire family, but especially Dory. She's a wonderful, also no bullshit kind of woman. And I can't imagine what she's going through right now. The pain of the loss of what truly was a life partner for Dory and for Tom. They both adored each other and were great for and with each other. So Dory's going through a bad time now. None of us can imagine having to watch the person you love and care for all these years not only deteriorate, but then make this incredibly brave decision to do what Tom did. California has a right to die law, and Tom decided that rather than have no quality of life, Tom decided to take his own life. If you can, if you're so inclined, look Dory up, Dory Smith on Facebook, or at Dory on Twitter, and at Negrino, Negroni, on Twitter, and just send a remembrance to Dory. Just send good thoughts to Dory. Whatever you feel is appropriate, even though you don't know her. I know she'd appreciate hearing from anyone. Wayne says, do we know if he picked today's date for a particular reason? No, it was just like a 2-week time thing. He was going to do it in 2 weeks, and he picked that date. I don't think it was the Ides of March or anything else like that. I don't think it was a birthday or anything special along those lines. I think he just chose that thing. The interesting thing was the countdown on Facebook. And I know Dory caught some flack for doing a countdown timer of 14 days, 13 days, 12 days. It was awkward, but that's how she dealt with it, and I have no problem with it. When I first saw it, I thought, ooh, but then I realized that's her way of processing it. That was her way of partially dealing with it and getting affirmation from the community. So I have no issue at all with it. Like I said, wonderful people, both of them. Tom will be sorely missed in the Macintosh community. A lot of you probably didn't know who Tom was, but he was more behind the scenes kind of guy. He was never a podcaster. He was never out front doing things on stage at Macworld Expo. He wasn't that kind of guy. He was a very strong, quiet presence in the background, an insider in the Macintosh community. I think he started the Los Angeles Macintosh User Group way back in the day. He's been around for 30 years. So while you may not know him, you certainly know someone who knows him. And we're all lessened by his loss, lessened by his inability to be Tom in the last few years, and certainly lessened by his passing today. So, Tom, I'm thinking about you, buddy. I hope you are in peace and not in pain anymore. That's the important part, is that Tom is no longer in pain, because I know he was in a great deal of pain the last little while. So, thanks, Tom. And I even practiced that, and I still... as always, please join us in one of our 2 chat rooms. You can join us in the IRC chat room. Thanks to the nice folks thanks to our good friend Monty. If you go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com, right there below the video, you'll see a way to get into the IRC chat room. It's really easy. You don't got to know anything about IRC. You don't got to be an IRC geek. You can be a complete newbie. Join us in the IRC and talk to the nice folks there. Or if you use Slack, you can go to yourmaclife.slack.com and join the Your Mac Life Slack channel there. Or if that doesn't work, and it doesn't seem to work, even though the Slack folks told me it would, send me an email to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com, and I will send you a personalized invite. Let me know what email address you want the Slack invite to be sent to. So, Mosquito says, raising a glass to gentlemen, hope I'm thought of as nicely as this man is when my time comes. Yeah, you know what? We can all hope that people think of us as well as we all think of Tom. Nobody ever had a bad word. Well, one person did in my life, and you know who she was. Had a bad word to say about Tom. He was a gentleman, but also a no bullshit guy, and I loved him. Monty says, I'll always be grateful to Ian Schrey for introducing me to Tom at the Macworld Expo immediately after he published his iCloud book. Tom talked to me like he'd known me all my life, such a warm, kind man. Arcsign says, Tom Negrino made the magnificent choice to die on his own terms and didn't wait around for fucking cancer to torture him to death. That takes some strength. I honestly don't know if I could do it. Think about that. The other thing is, I don't want to be much of a downer here, but this isn't a downer thing. Does your family know what your wishes are in the case of you being incapacitated? Do you have something written down or told to multiple family members of how unplug me, don't unplug me, let me go, hold on to me? Make sure you have that conversation with people, even if you do it in a joking way. As Wayne says, yeah, a personal directive, a living will. Don't put your power of attorney, don't put your family through this. Because the last thing in the world you want to do is, as you're going, have your family arguing over what the person's last wishes were. Make your last wishes known now. Tell somebody, write it down, give it to a lawyer, have it notarized, whatever you got to do. It takes 10 minutes out of your day just to get this done. When you're at work tomorrow, write out a note. You can, a lot of places have notary public, so you can have this thing notarized, and then you can photocopy it and put it in a safe or give it to your wife or your children, whatever it might be. Don't put them through any more agony than they have to be. Let them know what your wishes are. So, Dave D says, you bet, we've had this set up for years. MacMan says, not written down, probably should, but they know. Okay, as long as they know. As long as they know what your wishes are, that's the important thing. Wayne says in the IRC, in the Slack chat, should be a requirement of getting married. That's an interesting thought. The other thing is, while you're doing that, also do the organ donor thing. Make sure you're an organ donor. Unless you've got religious objections to it, and I completely understand those, most of us forget to be organ donors. There's no reason to keep your organs after you're dead. All right? There's none. God will give you a new heart. Okay? When you go to heaven, and I'm sure you all will, God will give you a new heart. He'll give you new eyes, a new kidney, new liver. But donate your organs to people. It's amazing how, we see these stories of someone dies tragically and they allow 7, 8, 10 other people to have a better life. That's amazing. That's spectacular. Do that. Please do that. Monty says it's more difficult for a gay man like me. It's sadly still too common for family members who don't agree with your lifestyle to cause problems with your significant other. That's a really good point, Monty. It really, really is. And by you taking control over that stuff now, they can't argue about it later. They can't say, no, I know what he wanted because it's written down somewhere. Somebody knows what your wishes are. The organ donor is default when I get my non-driver's ID renewed. Interesting, Mosquito. Not a lot of places have it as a default yes. Most places have it as a default no. I believe it should be a default yes. I think that's something that it should be automatic, that you are a organ donor unless you specifically choose to not be. So go ahead and do that, please. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about camera flashes. We're going to talk about the basics of how to use them, when to use them, some ways that you might not think of using them, and how to get a really good deal on one of these babies. And later on in the show, we'll talk to Dan Moren. D. Moren. Hopefully his website's up. Dan's poor website was down for a while. Let me just check to make sure that before I give it his URL. Yes, D. Moren, DMOREN.com is Dan's website, and his Twitter account is at DMoren, if you want to say hi to Dan on Twitter. We're talking about his new book, his sci-fi book called The Caledonian Gambit. But up next, we're going to talk to a good friend, Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on Your Mac Life for this Wednesday evening, or in the archive if you so choose to be tuned in that way. In our phone now, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
Doing good, Shawn. How are you?
How are your Bruins doing?
Okay. I'm a couple games behind, so I don't want to talk about that.
All right. I just posted a picture of you up in what might possibly be the world's ugliest Bruins jersey. Where did you get a blue and gray Bruins jersey?
No, it's purple.
Okay, purple and gray. It's still ugly. Where did you get that?
It's one of their practice jerseys.
They practice in purple, and that's just horrendous.
It's awesome.
See, I always hate when
purple.
I always hate when the original 6 teams mess with their logos and colors. Especially the original 6. I know the other teams do it, and the Canucks have changed their jersey like 15 times in 20 years. But when the original guys do it, I just really, really don't like it. I never have.
They've never played in that jersey.
Oh, okay. They've never played in that. Is it just a practice jersey?
It's just a practice jersey.
All right.
So, when they go out, they have different color lines and stuff like that. Some people wear jerseys with a specific color that cannot be hit because they're just coming back off of injury.
Oh, okay.
So they have, like bright yellow jersey or something, and not to hit them. But these are that one is a practice jersey. And because it was purple and the loop is purple,
Okay, well, that makes sense. It makes more sense for you than it does for them, because I think it's a horrendously ugly jersey.
Yeah.
So lots of rumors have been flying around over the last little while about what Apple is going to announce, what they're not going to announce. Apparently, the rumors have goosed the stock price. The stock price is now up over $140, a new record high for the company, up almost $1.50 today. Do you put any stock in these rumors of new iPads, new iPhones coming out next week, that kind of stuff? Or is this another one of those things that it's just the usual cycle of rumor BS?
I don't put any stock in rumors at all. Whether they're right or wrong, I don't listen.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me to get hyped up about rumors that you don't know what's going to happen.
I think for me, it doesn't matter anymore. Back in the days when we were all starting off doing this stuff, it was kind of interesting and fun to be one of the cool kids who knew what was going to happen. 95% of the time, everything was wrong anyway. So you just sort of chased around these false tidbits of information and wasted a lot of time. And now I literally don't care. I'll read the headlines of a rumor story because it pops up in my RSS feed, but I no longer pay attention to any of the rumor story. I don't click through to read Mac Rumors or to read 9 to 5 to say what they have to say about the rumors or who reported or anything else like that. It's a waste of time.
I don't do it. And you're exactly right. My opinion is just a waste of time.
Yeah.
I have better things to read and to pay attention to than to do that, like those retirees making sweaters for the chickens so that they could lay eggs.
I think that's the thing I love most about writing for and The Loop itself is the fact that between you, me, and Dave, any particular time frame, any particular 10, 12-hour period of time in a day, there's going to be just an odd goddamn story. And today it was yours. It was sweaters for chickens.
These it was in Massachusetts.
Yep.
This retirement home was beside people that had chickens.
Yep.
I'm not even sure if it was a farm, but they were beside people that had chickens, and the chickens couldn't lay eggs because it was so cold. So the retirees got out their knitting needles, and they knit like a dozen sweaters for the chickens to keep them warm so that they could lay eggs again. And then there was a picture of this woman, holding a chicken with a sweater on.
With a sweater on.
I had to post it. What are you going to do? I had to post it. And for a while it was one of the top read stories on the site. I mean, people just love chicken sweaters.
Well, you know what? I think the other part of it too is, especially with the times that we're going through, and depending on your social media habits, Twitter can just be a complete just shit show some days, and you just need something. You need fluff. You just need something to take your mind off all the crap that's going on. But that being said, let's go to the story of the BBC guy via Skype and his kids coming in and blah blah blah. Do you think that story was blown out of proportion? I mean, the Wall Street Journal wrote a exclusive piece on this. Isn't there a balance of fluff versus serious news that we sometimes go too far into the fluff area?
Well, I think a lot of it depends. I mean, I think we can go into the fluff area, and when I say we, I mean you, Dave, and I can go into the fluff area because we have such wide-ranging interests, and I think our followers have wide-ranging interests. That we can post I posted something today about a new plug-in for a guitar amp that I thought was really cool. I posted the chicken thing, and there's just that kind of stuff people expect from us. But I don't know if people expect that from the Wall Street Journal. But if it's a funny story, a human interest story, then why not?
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting stories that came out this past week is, I can't even say his name, but Jonathan Zdraskis is joining Apple, and a lot of you folks will have no idea who this guy is, and rightfully so. He's a wonk. He's a behind the scenes security guy. From your point of view, how do you see this story? Is this as they say on PTI, a big deal, a little deal, or no deal?
Well, I see anything that Apple does to improve its security as a big deal.
Yeah.
And some people, some readers aren't going to care. They're going to care more about the new mock-ups of an iPhone 8 than this story. But the fact is, this is a very significant thing for Apple and for all of its users, because he's security. He's privacy and security. And somebody like that isn't going to go work at Apple because Apple offered him a job.
Yeah.
He's going to go work there because he believes that they are serious about security.
Yeah.
That's it. And if they're not, he'll go somewhere where they are serious about security, because that's what he does.
That was exactly my take on it too. Was that Jonathan? It wasn't like this guy needed the gig. It wasn't like he wasn't already fairly well off. I don't know anything about the man. I don't know how much money he makes or anything along those lines. But it certainly feels like he's in a position where he can dictate terms to Apple. Apple would have come to him, probably, we don't know, but let's assume Apple came to him and said, "Hey, come work for us and make our security even better." And he was comfortable enough. I know he would have been comfortable enough to go, okay, but I want this. I want these people on my team. I want this kind of autonomy. I don't want to be interfered with, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's a good thing for Apple and security. The downside of it, though, is, and tell me if you agree with this, is if Apple, someone said that this was a quiet move. Well, it's not something Apple would announce from the rooftops anyway. But do you think there's a bit of a danger for Apple that if they promote the idea that they are not unhackable, but certainly more secure when it comes to particularly government intrusion, that they don't want to have the bright light of this particular administration shined upon them and have the administration start taking whacks at Apple because of this kind of stuff?
I don't think that no matter who the administration is, if they want to come after Apple, they're going to regardless. I mean, I don't think having a spotlight of this guy, and besides, even if the public didn't know, you can bet that corporations and government knows that this guy went to work there. So, shining a light on it doesn't make any difference in that respect, I don't think. So, this whole thing with breaking into the iPhone is going to rear its ugly head again.
Yes.
We know that.
Yep.
It's just a matter of when and what circumstances are. So, in the meantime, Apple has continually said that they are going to improve the security on the iPhone, software, hardware, whatever, but they're going to improve security. So, and that's what they're doing.
It's a shame that we were talking about this earlier in the pre-show, and it's a real shame that consumers in general, Apple's doing a lot of work both behind the scenes and up front when it comes to security, Touch ID and the Secure Enclave and those kinds of things. But it feels like users don't actually care about this kind of stuff, that users don't appreciate the efforts Apple is making, and users don't want or need. You hear so many people talking about how inconvenient two-factor authentication is. Well, yeah, security is inconvenient, but those are going to be the first people to start complaining and bitching when they get hacked or when their credit card information gets stolen or when other bad things happen to them. Can Apple do anything more than what they're doing when it comes to educating users in how important this stuff is and why they should care about this stuff?
Well, I think that Android is doing everything we could ask for. and educating users on why security is important.
That's that's a damn good point. Come to think of it, that's absolutely a good point.
I don't think that Apple. I mean, I think people are aware of security problems, malware problems, virus problems on platforms that they don't have with Apple. So I think that, while it's not a new fancy feature that, everybody uses and this is amazing, it is something that I think deep down, maybe subconsciously, they are aware that they don't have any issues with an Apple device. So, it's not right out there. I mean, if people say, oh, well, you ask somebody, why do you love your iPhone? Security is probably not going to be one of their first things.
Yeah.
They'll mention a feature or the screen or, something, but it's not going to be security. But that's still part of it.
It is a shame, though, that I don't think Apple gets nearly enough credit for the work they're doing for their customers, that they don't have to do this, that this is not something that's a government requirement or even a consumer level requirement. It's something that admirably, I believe, Apple is taking on themselves. This is costing them money, obviously, for the research and development and the implementation of any number of security features that customers aren't paying for directly. The price of the iPhone hasn't gone up by $10 because of any kind of new security stuff. But I don't think they can get nearly the credit from the community in general, and certainly from individual users who aren't Apple fans, just the average Joe Blow walking down the street. They don't think about the fact that they just put their thumbprint on their iPhone to open it up, and they don't think about the fact of how much more secure that makes them or how secure Apple Pay is. It's a real shame that they don't seem to get nearly as much props for that as I think they should.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice if they got props for that because it's huge. But do most people understand what Apple's doing? The extent of Apple's commitment to the environment, the extent to Apple's commitment to labor in all of its supply chain in all of those different countries. No, they don't. And do they really care? No, unless there's a story in the Wall Street Journal that says that Apple did this wrong. Yeah. Then they're up in arms and say, wait a minute, why are you doing that? And I guess rightfully so. If Apple's doing something wrong, for humanity, then, yeah, you should stand up and say that's not right.
Sure.
But until that happens, do people really care? No, they don't. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's not True. It's not that people are right or wrong. I mean, people have their own things that they need to worry about, their own lives that they need to worry about. And thinking about every single thing that a single company does is not that important in the big scheme of things until it is.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Until things go wrong, until things go bad, it's not that important. Speaking of things that aren't right, you posted a story in the Loop last week. Lamborghini open to an all-electric supercar.
No.
No, that's not going to happen.
Well, it will happen.
You think?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
See, I think if it happens, I firmly believe that end of the market, that high-end supercar, hypercar end of the market, will be the last ones to go all-electric because of noise. You get those cars because of engine noise, because of that grumble, that growl of a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or whatever other kind of car you're talking about. I get electric Leaf cars and Teslas and that kind of stuff, but the high-end supercar stuff, would you if you were a multi-millionaire who could afford a Lamborghini, say it's $1 million, would you want one that didn't make any noise?
No.
Yeah, I don't get that.
But millennials are taking over, and they want to drive Priuses. So, I don't get it, but there you go.
Wayne,
go ahead.
Wayne says we can't emulate that noise. Yes, you can.
I don't know. You can't emulate the feel.
Exactly. There's two things. There's the actual sound you get in your audio canal, but then there's that feel in your bones, in your soul of the noise of that. It's the same with motorcycles. I've ridden electric motorcycles, and there's a reason why people put loud pipes in Harleys. It's not just because they're obnoxious assholes. It's because you can feel noise, and you really can't when you're emulating it in that kind of manner. I think that makes a big difference. I really believe that. I don't think that end of the market, very much like motorcycles, will be the last ones to go all electric.
Well, here's the thing, though. Porsche also said last week that they were going to do that.
Yep.
Now, both of those companies are owned by Volkswagen.
Yes.
And Volkswagen, as you know, just had that big problem with diesel engine testing.
Yep.
So Volkswagen has committed to electric.
Yep.
Not just for themselves, but across all of their products. So this isn't coming, all of a sudden Lamborghini didn't say, "Oh, I think we should make an electric car." No, Volkswagen said to Lamborghini, "You are going to make an electric car."
Yep.
So that's a big difference.
My thought with that is always that until I see it actually happen, this is just marketing PR. These are just companies, whether it be Volkswagen or Ferrari or Ford, who are just saying the right things to their customers, to the government, to the environmentalists, whoever it might be. The proof is in the pudding. Show us those kinds of cars that do those things. Right now, for a lot of these kinds of cars, there's I can't remember which one it is, but I think what's going to happen more is that there'll be cars with gas engines but electric motors, and the electric motor helps the gas engine, so you can have a smaller gas engine, therefore use less gasoline, but you'll have an electric motor that gives the car an extra boost. I think one of the a McLaren has got 1,000 horsepower, but then when the electric engine kicks in, it's got 1,500 horsepower, which is an insane number. But yeah. I don't think we're going to see all electric hypercars. We see all electric cars now. We see all electric sedans and that moving into the mid range. But when it comes to that high end, we're talking about cars that are $750,000, $1 million. I think the folks who are going to buy those cars want that noise, want that experience of whacking the throttle open and not just accelerating, but hearing and feeling the acceleration. I know I feel it on the motorcycle on a regular basis.
That could be an age thing too, because, all of the people that drive electric cars now, if there's a millennial out there, like the Snapchat guys that have $1 billion now, maybe they want an electric Lamborghini. Yeah. Maybe they're going to be the new customers. And those of us who like the engine noise and rumble, we're old school. Maybe we'll have to buy used ones.
Arcsign makes a good, interesting point in the IRC chat room. The supercar idea changes over time. Sound and speed had a great run. Now it's time for speed and acceleration. I don't know, though, that Sound and Speed had a great run. I think that's still running. I think that's still, again, in the upper echelons, in the high-end $1 million car range, because you can still get acceleration and have sound and speed.
Yeah, but exhilaration, I mean, the fastest exhilarating car right now, it's the Tesla.
Acceleration? You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
It can outdo, a Ferrari,
Everything.
a Lamborghini,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
It's just, it's like 2.5 seconds, 0 to 60 or something?
If
it's
not,
just a crazy number.
But if you watch the first episode of Top Gear, this new season, they took out the new Ferrari FXXK, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, 1,200 horsepower, and the noise was glorious.
See, I love that. I really do. But there's going to be a lot of buyers that won't.
Yeah, possibly. It's going to be, and I agree. I think that'll change in our lifetime. I think that's not going to. I agree with Arcsign that there is a run and it is coming to the end, but I don't think it's going to happen for at least another 10 years before we see the kind of all electric supercars that these guys are talking about.
Yeah, and those all electric ones are going to be fast as hell. But see, for me, it's not the speed, it's the ride.
Yeah.
It's that drive, and when you step it down, and there's so many different things that that are part of it for me.
Yeah, the idea for me isn't top speed, it's acceleration. It's quick. I prefer quick
don't even
more than
need
top
that.
speed. Yeah.
I don't even need that. You could go out and spend $500,000 on a Lamborghini, pull up at a stoplight next to a Tesla, and he'd kick your ass.
That's right. Well, me and my motorcycle can kick your ass if you missed your shift.
Yeah, I don't care about exhilarate. I just care about cruising. I mean, I'd rather just cruise down the road at like 20 miles an hour, Aussie blaring out the stereo, the engine rumble, and
And here is the perfect encapsulation of a vast majority of our audience. Monty says, from a strictly scientific perspective, every decibel of noise is robbing your ability to go fast. Shut up! Shut up! You're completely missing the point, you frickin' nerd!
Yeah. There you go.
The noise is waste energy. Shut up!
Yeah.
On the loop today, you posted, Pandora Premium gets ready to launch. You seem unreasonably excited about this. Why?
I am, because Pandora promises to make a service for or that's focused on the user, not one that's focused on, we just spent $20 million and we're going to plaster this guy's name or girl's name all over your app.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. I want a service that cares about me as a listener, not me because I'm paying you money.
How is that going to represent itself in the Pandora Premium? Why do you say that Pandora is going to have a better customer service aspect to it than?
Well, it's not. It's app experience.
App experience. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So Pandora is going to be all about helping you find music that you like.
Okay, but aren't the other services like that?
Go to the browse section of Apple Music. What do you see there? Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
No matter what kind of music you like, everybody gets the same thing. And what do they get? Whatever Apple wants to give them, and whatever exclusives Apple has. So Apple needs to make its money back. Then you get that. On Pandora, they don't do that. Pandora will look at what you've listened to and say, hey, here's something cool. Maybe you might like this. You've listened to Metallica. Why don't you try some Megadeth?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be based on everything that you listen to, not that Pandora says, hey, I see that you listen to Metallica. Why don't you give Drake a try?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
No. Not even close.
So, that's what it's going to be. Now, as you listen to different genres, as you will, I will listen to rock, hard rock, classic rock, but I mean, if I listen to some classic rock, it could come up and say, "Hey, here's some Led Zeppelin."
Yeah.
You know, we saw that you listened to some classic rock. Do you want to try some Led Zeppelin? Yes, I do. And Pandora Premium is also filtering out all of the karaoke songs
Yeah.
and all of the crap. So no longer will I play my new music playlist from Apple Music and get a cover song.
Yeah.
Pandora's cutting that stuff out. So I will get an actual Led Zeppelin song, not a cover song from a Led Zeppelin cover band. And that's important to me. So they're caring. So if I listen to a station, for instance, I listen to a hard rock station, and songs come up, and of course with Pandora, the way to what the fuck is going on?
Sorry, I just opened up a drawer. My apologies.
If you listen to a song on Pandora and you thumbs up the song, after a few thumbs up on songs, it will create a playlist based on that station for songs that you thumbs up. Now, if you go to the bottom of that playlist, there's a little magic wand, and it says add similar songs. So you can add similar songs, and it'll bring up those songs. And if there's one in there that you don't like, you just swipe and it deletes it.
Cool.
And it remembers that you don't like that song.
Mm-hmm.
So if you click the magic wand again and say add similar songs, it'll keep the ones that you kept, and then add more songs minus the one that you did and songs like that.
Okay.
So it's very, very tailored to your needs as a listener.
Nice.
As opposed to being tailored to the needs of the company.
So did you get that Pandora Premium code you were begging for on Twitter?
I didn't beg for it. I said I was looking.
You were begging for it. You were looking for someone. Don't lie. You're looking for someone Pandora to send you a code.
What I said is I'm patiently waiting. You know why? Because today's the day that the codes went out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The invites went out today, and I am already a Pandora Plus subscriber and have been for a while. So mine was coming today.
Did you get it yet?
So I did.
Oh, good. And are you going to write a review on Premium?
Yeah.
Good. So I'll look forward to reading more about it later on The Loop. Folks, been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much to Jim for joining us here. Now, next up, I'm going to... How am I going to do this? Okay, so I'm going to... it's been so long since I've done interviews in between that. Next up, we're going to... Later on, we're going to talk about camera flashes, how to use them, when to use them, and where to get a good deal on them. And but up next, we're going to talk to Dan Moren. Dan is a newly published author, and we're going to talk to him about his new book, his writing style, what he writes about, and all kinds of things like that. All that and much more coming up. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me here this evening, Wednesday evening, or live Wednesday evening, or via the archive. Now, in our phone room, we've got our good friend Dan Moren. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Shawn. How are you?
I am good. First of all, congratulations. I know you've been working on this book, for how many years now?
Oh, geez, it's almost more than I can count. I think it's, I probably started writing the first draft of this back in 2009 or so.
Oh my God. Now, does that mean you're lazy, or what took so long?
Yeah, that's what it means. It means I'm very, very lazy. Well, there's a lot of things that goes into writing a book. And in fact, the writing of it is sometimes sort of the short part, like the initial drafting of it. Because this is an idea I had been kicking around back since I was in like college.
Oh, really?
And I was back in like 2002 or so, and I didn't sit down to write it in about 2009. At which point I sort of plowed through it and wrote it in probably a couple years. I sort of did the first draft. But it's a long road from writing that first draft to actually getting it to publication, as it turns out, and I got to learn all about that.
It was interesting to read about your process, and that you said you've been a writer, at least in your own head, since first grade, something you've always wanted to do. But I didn't know that you thought of yourself as a book writer. I know you obviously from Macworld.com and from Six Colors. I know you as a tech writer, as a article writer, as a columnist type person. Is that the wrong way to look at Dan Moren? Is Dan Moren a book writer who happens to write columns on the side, or vice versa?
Well, it's funny. I definitely have wanted to be a fiction writer, a storyteller, since basically as long as I can remember this, because I loved reading growing up. Mm-hmm. And for me, the tech journalist angle was always, I don't want to say diversion, but it was something that I stumbled into kind of unexpectedly. And I really embraced it. I loved it because I love technology and I love writing, and it was a great way to combine those two passions of my life. But in the back of my head, I'd always wanted to write some novels. And so I had, cranked on them for a little bit in the background. I actually wrote my first couple books back in the early 2000s, but they didn't really get any traction. And so I didn't get a chance to get them published or anything. And in retrospect, looking back at them now, they probably weren't very good, but it was an experience, right? I learned a bunch of stuff doing that. And so, for me, I like to think of myself just as a writer of all things that I'm interested in, whether that be fiction or technology, journalism, or what have you. It's just fun to communicate that way with the written word.
I still remember that day, I don't know how long ago it was, but on Twitter when you announced that A, you had an agent, and B, that you were going to be published, and me being excited for you, because even though I only saw it through Twitter, I saw where you had been going through all that long period of time with all the drafts and all the folks who read things for you and that kind of thing. I know it was a long process, but was it a torturous process? I always think of writing, and I always admire guys like you who can write columns, who can write books, because for me, I firmly believe in that old line about writing, that writing is easy. I just stare at a piece of paper until blood comes out of my eyes. I can't write. I cannot sit down and write. You could literally put a gun to my head. It would make talk. I can talk your ass off, but writing, it blows me away how you guys can do that. So was the process long and difficult, or just long?
Difficult at times. I think there's always a bit of a struggle. People always get blocked. You always get stuck on certain parts. I think that's the biggest lesson to sort of take away from it, is that it's about more than anything. I know a good friend of mine who's a writer who says he doesn't believe in talent at all. And I think that there's probably some people who might be better, have proclivities that lend them to being a better writer out of the gate, but honestly, I think that the bigger part of it comes down to persistence. If you sit down and write words every day, even if they're not the best words, but if you're putting one word after the other, you're going to finish a book a lot sooner than the talented person who just sits and stares at that page. and I think it certainly is a long process, because a book is long, but you can throw out 100,000 words in a year pretty easily. No. They might not be the right words. And for me, it was the revision and editing that ended up being the better part of the time.
The book is called The Caledonian Gambit. I love the name, if only because I come from Nova Scotia, which is called New Caledonia. So I've got a special place in my heart for the book already. The description on Dan's website, dmoren.com. The galaxy is mired in a cold war between two superpowers, the Aurelian Empire and the Commonwealth. Thrust between this struggle are Simon Kovalek, the Commonwealth's preeminent spy, and Kyle Rankin, a lowly soldier happily scrubbing toilets on Sabia, a remote and isolated planet. However, nothing is as it seems. First question. How do you come up with the names of these kinds of things? Is there a sci-fi? Because every sci-fi book does this. They have names of planets and places and people that have nothing to do with English. Is there like a sci-fi dictionary or thesaurus that you guys can use?
Oh, there's just a website. You just click a button
gonna go
generate stuff randomly.
Special subscription. That kind of, but I mean, seriously, that's what. When I first reading it, I thought, yeah, he's doing the same thing all sci-fi guys do. They come up with these. So how do you say that? The Illyrican Empire. And the planet is Sabia?
Sabia. Sabia is one of them. Yep, you got that. Caledonia. And it's, like you said, Caledonia actually comes from, and it's an old name for Scotland, which is why
right.
Nova Scotia is New Caledonia.
That's right.
And there is actually an island. I can't remember if it's an independent country or not, but there is an island called New Caledonia over near Australia.
Yes,
I think
that's right.
French territory. But I saw that on a map. I kid you not. I saw that on a map when I was 13 and just thought it was the coolest name ever. Like filed it away for years. And that's how a lot of that works is you just come up with tidbits. I don't even know where half these things come from. Character names especially. They just sort of pop into your head at some point. You're like, that's a cool name. And so for me, Caledonia, and especially for the fact that I lived briefly in Scotland when I was in college. I studied abroad there. I have a huge fondness for all things Celtic, Scotland, Ireland, and there's a lot of that in the book and sort of the culture of that planet. That's a big part of it for me. But I don't know. Half these things come from like old college course notes. Again, jotting things down and being like, "Oh, that's cool. I should use that for something."
What is it about? And I hopefully you take this term as the term of endearment I mean it to be. What is it about nerds and science fiction? Why is it that such a strong draw for those folks to write in this particular genre?
I think it really goes to a couple things. One of which is just the escapism part, right?
Yep.
Like the imagination, like getting out of your current environment. A lot of people who, like me, were nerds, especially in high school in that time period, felt disenfranchised or just isolated, right, and outcast. So you want to escape from that reality, and to have something fantastical happen to you, I think, is a huge part of that. Also, as someone who just loves working with technology and writing and thinking about technology, that's sort of the ultimate epitome of that. Is like, oh, it's future spaceships and wormholes and all this stuff. Like, it's stuff that is unexplored and kind of fascinating and intellectually interesting, and it's like a huge detailed thing that you can just sort of dive into and learn a ton about. And I think that's what appeals to most nerds, really, is like intellectual curiosity, just like really getting involved in like really investigating something.
I think it's an interesting point too. It seems like it's a natural outgrowth of who you are as a person, as a geek or a nerd. I love the idea of that fantasy. I was a huge sci-fi fan, less so now, but when I was a kid, for exactly those reasons, the escapism of it was the ultimate escapism. Was being able to go and visit and travel to and learn about other worlds. But I think all sci-fi, if it's just science fiction, if it's just technology, it's less interesting. There's always got to be, for lack of a better term, a humanity to the characters.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
If you can wrap the greatest science in the world around it, but if I don't care about the characters, I don't care about the science itself. Talk to us about some of the characters in your book and how you develop them.
Yeah, that's really important to me too, because I really love, no matter how far you go in the future, I'm firmly convinced that characters are like people are people, and thus characters need to be relatable. And so the two major protagonists of my book are a character named Simon Kovalik, who is a spy, and he is sort of your typical covert operative. He's a little jaded, he's a little older, he's basically seen a lot of stuff, and he's trying to sort of keep everything together. He really doesn't want this Cold War to turn into a shooting war because he's seen enough war. And so he gets involved in this plot as sort of a way to like try to keep the balance in the universe. And then the other main character is a character named Elijah Brody, who is a pilot. He's sort of washed up. He got put through the ringer in part of this war, and he basically decided he was going to get out and he was going to stay out. And he gets dragged back in because he is uniquely suited to this particular mission that they're dealing with, which has to do with sort of a super weapon that could change the balance of power.
Dun, dun, dun!
And, yeah. So you've got this sort of mismatched pair with the really experienced, very competent spy and the somewhat hapless but kind of too useful to give up pilot. So I think their interplay is a big part of the book for me, and having them sort of bounce off each other as characters is a lot of fun.
I mentioned earlier that I used to be a huge sci-fi fan, and less so now. And most of that's because sometime in the past 20 years, most sci-fi novels became trilogies or quadrilogies or, world-spanning 16 book series that just, as a kid, pissed me off. I had to wait 2 more years to read the next book. Is this a self-contained book, or is this the beginning of a trilogy, quadrilogy, 16 series book?
I always like to say it's a self-contained story
Good.
with series potential.
Ah,
Which is to say, these characters, the book in of itself tells a story. That story is complete. There are some hooks dropped here and there that, if this turns into a series, like further adventures of type thing, right? Like it's something where it's more based on these characters and their continuing adventures and missions and that kind of framework. So it has the potential to turn into more things. I right now have a second book that I'm working on in it, but it's like, if you read the first book, it tells a complete story.
Yep.
It's not going to leave you with a cliffhanger where you're like, oh, what happens next?
Yep.
You're going to feel like, all right, that ended, but maybe these characters have more adventures in the future.
Well, I think one of the problems is, and interestingly enough, I think Game of Thrones has shown us this doesn't have to be true. The problem is when the book has got 4, 5, 6 books after it, the main characters aren't ever in any danger. They're never going to die because they've got to be the main character in book number 5. I think it was one of the wonderful shocks of Game of Thrones was that first season when the second last episode, the main character got his freaking head cut off. And you were like, wait, that can't happen. The main guy can't die. But a part of me was like, yes, now I don't know what's going to happen. And hopefully that's something that is in your books too, because there's no element of it's one of the problems that takes me out of any superhero story I watch. Because I know Spider-Man is never going to die. No matter how much danger he gets put in, he's never going to die in the movies. It sort of takes me out of the adventure of it, of will he live, will he die kind of thing. So that's something that I'm glad to hear that you say the book is a self-contained book, and I don't got to wait for you to get old and fat like George R. Martin to the next volume.
Hey, there are worse things in life.
Fair point.
He's doing okay for himself.
Do you work on one book at a time, or are you the kind of person who will spend a week on one book and then to another book, and then following on with that, are there other genres that you'd be interested in writing for?
Yeah, I do tend to work on one book at a time. It's just easier for me to stay immersed in a story. But when it comes to sort of editing and revisions, I sometimes bounce around a bit. Besides the second book in this series, which I'm sort of been working on revising at this point, I've also written an urban fantasy book that I've kind of am still revising and editing, which is sort of set in the modern day, set in Boston, where I live, and has to do with sort of a let's call him sort of a spiritual consultant who
the hell does that mean?
Embroiled. Yeah, he's like he's not quite a psychic because he's not actually a psychic, but he's kind of, think of it like a noir detective.
Okay, cool.
In like spooky stuff, like ghosts and that kind of stuff. So that draws a little bit too into my technological background. There's some stuff in there involving a technology company that's up to some shady stuff. So that's something I'm working on and hoping to find a home for in the not too distant future.
The book comes out, I think is it May 23rd?
Yep, May 23rd.
It'll be available on Amazon.com and in fine bookstores all over the place. Will you be going on a book tour, Dan?
No plans as of yet. I'm hoping to hold an event sort of locally in the Boston area to do have a signing or something like that, or a reading. Good. But I'm still in development.
I read in one of the interviews with you about this that they were talking about some authors have admitted to struggling when writing dialogue, and your next line, I love dialogue. Oh my God, thank you. That makes me want to read this book, because there are all kinds of sci-fi books where the author just gets locked into technology and there's 15 pages of exposition about why this ship moves this fast. Like, oh, no, just accept the fact that it moves fast. How much is your book dialogue and how much of it is sci-fi technology that, really in-depth kind of equals MC squared type stuff?
It's not super in depth on the sci-fi stuff. At heart, this is a spy novel, and
Good.
So
okay.
it's fast paced. It's got action. It's got humor. It's definitely, I don't see any point in having characters on stage unless they're going to banter with each other and sort of have some fun dialogue. And I do love writing dialogue. It is my favorite part because, I love shows and movies that have dialogue that just sort of crackles and you can hear it in your head afterwards. And that's really what I was shooting for, was something that's got a little more engaging, character driven. There's some sci-fi technology, and of course there's some spy drama. But yeah, it's a character driven thing.
How much of, in your opinion, does sci-fi either in fact or should reflect our current worlds? One of the things I didn't realize as a kid reading sci-fi was how much of that stuff I was reading was the author's musings on the present. I thought as a kid that it was all about the future. Is that what sci-fi should be? Is it about the future, or should it reflect our present society?
I think that's a great point. It's really one of the things that works so well and that sci-fi can do that so many other genres can't, to sort of extrapolate where we are and take a different look at it, to sort of defamiliarize things just enough that we can view it differently. I have to think back to one of my favorite arcs on TV, even though the whole show is kind of mixed bag, but the Battlestar Galactica version they did a few years ago, they did an arc about occupation. It was right around the time of the height of the Iraq War.
That's right. Yep.
And it was incredibly insightful in like making you step back and view things through a different lens. And I think that's a huge power of sci-fi. And for me, I went into this because I wanted to write a story that was sort of an homage to Cold War spy stories, which are after my own heart. And I did not think, well, this is very relevant in this day and age. And yet, in the environment that it's coming into in this day and age, it suddenly feels very relevant.
Exactly.
So you never know with these things.
Yeah, you didn't write it that way, but it turned out that way. So hopefully it will be well received. Arcsign in the RC chat room says, I want to read Dan's sci-fi book. When is it coming out? Is it out? Not out yet, Arcsign. It'll be available on Amazon.com and in hopefully fine bookstores near you on May 23rd. The usual price for a hardcover, or sorry, is it coming out in hardcover first or softcover?
It's a trade paperback. It'll also be available in ebook. It's definitely up. I think the Kindle pre-orders are up now.
Okay.
I believe it'll be in the iBookstore as well if you're doing that kind of thing, but I don't think it's there yet, but it should be showing up there.
Folks, you can find out more from Dan. You can go to his website at dmoren.com, DMOREN.com, or his Twitter account is at dmoren. If you want to check out Dan on Twitter, he also writes for Six Colors, sixcolors.com, and frequently for the late lamented Macworld.com. And speaking of late, I wanted to get your thoughts here. We found out just before the show that our good friend Tom Negrino has passed away, has died. Tom, to be perfectly frank, took his own life in the most wonderful possible way. Give us a quick thought on Tom.
Oh, man, I love Tom. But actually, what's funny to me that, given this conversation we're having here, is that he was a big sci-fi convention back in 2015.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry,
and we chatted for a while about that, and he also had followed me writing the book, and he was always
Dan. I've lost Dan. I missed all of that. It was nice timing too. Jesus, Dan, you still there?
Sorely missed.
Sorry, Dan. All of that was gone. As soon as you said I love Tom, the rest of it was gone. So could you go back and pick that up? This is too important for me to cut it out. So I want to make sure that, that we get it in there.
Yeah. So I love Tom. I worked with him at Macworld. Obviously, he was a contributor there, and he was fantastic. I also, it's funny that I'm talking about the sci-fi book. That Tom was a big sci-fi fan, and the last place that I actually remember running into him was at Worldcon, which is a big sci-fi convention back in 2015. And we always got to talk a little bit about science fiction and that kind of stuff. And he was clearly very passionate about that and loved talking about it. But he was also so genuinely supportive, because we talked about the book and he was very enthusiastic about it. And he was really encouraging and just such a wonderful guy, warm presence. I loved always talking with him. I enjoyed all my conversations with him, and he will be sorely missed.
Absolutely. And again, as I said earlier, our thoughts go out to Dory, who was left behind. Mm-hmm. It's amazing strength through all this stuff, but I know she's hurting right now. So, folks, if you can, send your good thoughts out to Dory, at Dory on Twitter, at Negrino on Twitter. The book is called The Caledonian Gambit by new author Dan Moren, available in stores and on Amazon.com on May 23rd. Dan, thanks very much for doing this, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Shawn. It was a pleasure.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I could have kept talking to Dan for a while, but Dan's got another podcast to do. Is one of the other podcasts he does that he has had to leave earlier than I wanted him to. So hopefully you guys like that. I've known Dan for 15 years. We worked together at Macworld.com and met many times at Macworld Expo. I hung out with him in Boston for an Apple store opening up there, and really nice guy. You ever get a chance to sit down and what you just heard was Dan. There's no artifice with Dan. He's a really nice guy. I like him a lot. So I wish him huge success on the book, The Caledonian Gambit. Segment this evening, I'm going to talk about Flash. I went to the Bloedel Conservatory. If you ever get a chance to go to a conservatory in your neck of the woods, go. It's cool. There's birds. There's pretty flowers. There's great picture opportunities. Many of the birds are static. They're just sitting on their perches, and they're fun to take pictures of. And there's some. This one here in Vancouver is got African greys and a very talkative cockatoo, and a couple of beautiful scarlet macaws. There was a golden pheasant. Oh my God, I've never seen a golden pheasant before. He was walking through the undergrowth, and I couldn't get a good shot of him. All kinds of just beautiful birds running around in here. And so if you get a chance to go to any conservatory, there was one when I lived in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had a conservatory, a butterfly conservatory, which had to be the coolest freaking place in the world because there was something like 5,000 butterflies in this relatively small space. And the butterflies would just, if you were there at feeding time, the butterflies they would give you a little dollop of probably just sugar water. And the butterflies would land on your finger or on your hand, and you could feed the butterflies, which was just insanely cool to be able to, take pictures of and shoot these wonderful multicolored, multi variety of butterflies. And it was very fun to be able to go and shoot there. Just got to make sure the audio works on these things. So there's the African gray that we saw there, and there was these little tiny itty bitty birds that were just insanely colorful and very, very cute. I'll just show you a picture of the little ones here. Just let me go back here, and then this should work where I can show you this one on the right, the red and blue and green and purple and yellow on that bird was just, the colors were ridiculous. It was so wild. This bird, little tiny bird, about finch sized, so a fairly small bird. And there was the very talkative cockatoo that had a lot of fun chatting to everybody. So one of the things that I told the group was you didn't need to use your flash. One of the things everyone should know is how to turn the flash off on their camera, whether it be your iPhone, whether it be your point and shoot, whether it be your DSLR or your mirrorless. Because 95% of the time, the flash on those cameras is awful. And I know Apple brags about the True Tone flash on the iPhone, but it's not very good. One of the issues is these devices have very small flashes, so it's a very tight light, and the quality of light is very directional, and it's right next to the lens. So the light goes straight out and straight back in. It's not very good quality. Same with even a DSLR with the flash on top. When you have this flash on top of your DSLR, it's very close to the lens, and the light this thing up here doesn't deliver good quality light. So I tell folks you should always avoid using your flash whenever possible. Learn your camera. Learn how to manipulate your camera to make it more sensitive to light, as opposed to adding light from the flash that's on a camera. Learn how ISO affects your photography. Learn exposure compensation. Learn about metering, all that kind of stuff. If you find yourself shooting fairly regularly in challenging lighting conditions. Now, that being said, there are times when you can use one of these flashes or need to use one of these on-camera flashes. These are the cameras these are the flashes that this one doesn't want to come off. Of course not, because it's a poor design, and my fingers, there we go. So this is called an on-camera flash. This fits into what's called the hot shoe on top of your camera. If you have one of these cameras, this slides into the hot shoe, you lock it down, and then the head of the camera moves around. Sorry, the head of the flash moves around. So you can control the light and angle the light. Rather than having the light go straight out and straight back, you can bounce it off a ceiling. You can bounce it off a wall. You can make the light move around things. So these are better than the flash that comes with your camera, because there's separation between the flash and the lens. The other thing you can do, both with the flash on the camera and the flash on top of the camera, is you can change the strength of the flash. So I can make this flash full power, that if I flash it now, you'd all be blind, or I can bring it down to 1/28th power, where it's just a little bit of light. Full power, or just a little bit of tiny little light, extra light that I need. So I can control. These things always have a set of buttons on the back, and you have to read the manual to figure out what these buttons do and how to change those sorts of things. But they're really good for having more control over the light that you're trying to get. The other great thing is a lot of these things will have, and let's see if I can't pull this thing out. I had trouble doing this yesterday, and I don't want to break it. There is I never got the, here you go. So there's this card on a lot of these flashes that slides out from the top. And this allows you to flip it down in front of the flash. That makes it a little more dispersed, softer light. Or you can leave it up and the light will bounce off of this and then onto your subject. Same with this card here. This is just a white card, and it does the same thing. It bounces the light off of the flash. So I can, rather than aiming the flash directly at somebody, I can lift this up and the flash will go up here and then bounce off to them. So again, it's a matter of controlling light. The other aspect of these flashes, and the reason why I want to talk about this one in particular, is if the flash is right next to your camera and the light goes out and comes straight back in, you get ugly light. But what if you could make your flash go over here, or up here, or down there? A lot of these off-camera a lot of these are called off-camera flashes. What that means is it doesn't have to be on my camera in order to still work. So say, for example, I am outside. So it's in the evening, and I have my subject standing with a street light above them. So you can imagine what would happen if there's a street light above them and the light's coming down. There's going to be shadow over their forehead. Same with a bright sunny day. Shadows over their forehead, their nose shadow, maybe their face shadow down their neck. Maybe that's not the shot I want. Maybe I want a better shot. Well, with an off-camera flash, I can do exactly that. I can either myself hold it off to the side, or have an assistant hold it off to the side and point the light at the person. I can make it down low, off to the side. You can put it on a light stand and shoot that way, or you can have someone else hold it. And that way, when I push the shutter button, this flash goes off as well, and it fills in the light that is coming from below. Sorry, fills in those shadows, and so we don't have those harsh shadows on someone's face. It's the same with the idea of if for whatever reason you were shooting into the sun. So you're at the beach and the sun is setting and you want to get a picture of a person with the sun behind them. Well, when you take a picture without a flash, generally they're going to be silhouetted. And that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's the effect you want. Maybe you do want to see their face. And so what you can do is you can use a flash, it's called a fill flash, at a very low power to give just enough light for their face to be lit up, but not enough light to overpower the background. So you still have a nice sunset behind them, but good light on their face as well. And again, this can be held off to the side or off to above or below, or put on a stick. What you need for these things is a trigger. So what happens is this little device goes into the hot shoe of your DSLR, and then it sends a signal to this device. So that's kind of cool. I can put this on a stick or have a friend hold it. I can take a picture here, and the flash over there will go off. And if you buy the right ones, you can have that one trigger multiple flashes. So I can have different flashes pointing in different ways. You've seen this at photo shoots. You've seen this, maybe you remember your yearbook or your company pictures where the photographer will have multiple flashes coming from different directions. Wayne asked a really good question. I want to make sure I get to it. Wayne says, does the latency of wireless transmission cause noticeable delay? Generally, no. It depends on how high speed you want this. If you were trying to shoot a bullet, you wouldn't use these kind of flashes. If you're just shooting people, these flashes are fine. There wouldn't be that much latency. It's almost instantaneous. It travels at the speed of light. And because the distances aren't all that great, it's not that much of an issue. It might be an issue, again, with super high-speed photography, but it's not an issue with these ones. Now, do you have a Canon? Do you have a Nikon? Go to Amazon.com, do a search for Canon, Nikon flashes or speed lights. You'll see they're at the low end, $300, at the high end, $900. These are $60 a piece. I got these, and they're linked on the YourMacLifeShow.com website. So go to the website. On the left-hand side, look at the Amazon.com list and click on, it's called the Yonggu YN564, or Mark IV, as I hear a lot of folks calling it. And I thought, well, these are going to be cheapo flashes. Because I've been wanting an external flash for a while, but I ain't paying $600, $800 for an external flash. So I saw some reviews of this thing. I thought, okay, $60, I'll get a couple of them for $60. I've got some free Amazon bucks. It wasn't going to cost me. Thanks very much to you guys for buying stuff from Amazon. I got the Amazon Christmas bonus, and so I had free Amazon bucks. Okay, $60 each. I'll take a flyer on these things. Turns out they feel very high quality. They're plastic, but it doesn't feel like it's cheap plastic. There's some funny little characteristics of this. On other flashes I've used, this is a button that you use to unlock the head. It doesn't work on this one. They're fake buttons. They don't actually do anything. So I don't worry about that too much. The neat thing about this is that because this YN560 Mark IV comes out of the box linked, these things automatically, once I set them up on the same channels in the back, work in concert. And I can change the settings on one, and it will automatically change the settings on the other. So if this one is 20 feet away, I can change the settings in this one, and it will make changes to that one. I also bought these flash diffusers that I could put over the top of them too. And at the same time, I bought 2 of these flash triggers. And the flash triggers also work as a regular trigger too. So if you needed to flash manually, you can do that with these things. There's all kinds of really neat ways and things to use flash for. As you get to be a better photographer, you're going to start encountering scenarios where you just need a flash. You're going to see the reason why I got these was I took some pictures of someone, and that street light thing was exactly the problem I was having, was that there was a great scene behind them. There was neon lights behind the person, but when I tried to shoot them with just natural light, the picture didn't come out. So I asked them to move into a street light so I could still get the neon behind them, but they would be lit. But when I took the pictures, because the street light was coming down from above them, there was just harsh shadows on them. So I had the person step back so the street light was in front of them, but the street light, not very attractive. It wasn't a good source of light. So that's where I got the idea that I needed some of these external flash lights. There's all kinds of books on flash. There's this thing called TTL, or through the lens flash. There's high speed sync flash. There's all kinds of different ways of doing flash. But if you're interested, if you find yourself shooting in situations where there's not enough light, for whatever reason that might be, take a look at getting an external flash. And if you get an external flash, get one that works off the camera. There's no point in buying a flash that only works on top of your camera. That's a waste of time and money, especially if you're spending that kind of money on it. But for $60, $70 a piece, let me just make sure. Hang on. I'm just realizing as I'm saying that, I want to check to make sure I'm telling you the right price. I'm pretty sure that was the price of these things. I'm going to the website and clicking on the link to go to Amazon.com. And yeah, $69.50. Plus $16 shipping and import fee, but that's to Canada, not to you folks in America. So yeah, $70 for it feels like a good quality product. It's not droppable. It's not steel or anything else. They got to take care of them. From what I've read, it's a very, very good flash. It does a lot of things. It doesn't do high-speed sync flash. That's the only thing it doesn't do that people warn me about, but I have no intention of doing high-speed sync flashing. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. If you don't already know what it is, you're not liable to do it anytime soon. But take a look at picking up one of these off-camera flashes and see if you can create some stuff using that. That's our starting point photography segment for this evening. As always, I like getting emails from you guys. So send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com whenever you feel like it. I would appreciate the emails that you have. Just, okay, some of these are a little too long. I have to go through. Okay, we get to some photography questions. One question from Peter. Is the Sony a6300 the best camera for studying photography? No, it is not. Peter, there's no such thing as the best camera for studying photography. Photography has nothing to do with cameras. Photography has to do with creating images. You can create an image with any camera. It doesn't matter what camera you have. Learn how to create images with that camera, whether it be an iPhone or a point and shoot or an Android phone, doesn't matter. Learn what creates good photography using that camera. Don't think that you need a particular kind of camera or even a particular brand of camera in order to be a good photographer. Don't get locked into the gear. Learn about photography in a big picture kind of way before you start thinking I need to buy this kind of camera or this kind of lens or this kind of thing in order to study photography. Suzanne wants to take pictures of her kids. Can I record audio on my iPhone and video in a DSLR and get these two mixed? How can I do that? Suzanne, yeah, you can do it. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very fiddly. It's going to be a pain in the ass because what's going to happen is your audio on your iPhone is going to be obviously out of sync with the video on your camera. What you got to do is take those two pieces of audio, so two pieces of data, put them into software, and then match them up so that your video and audio are in sync. What you're doing in a very basic way is the way movies are created. Sound is not captured on the film camera, and audio is captured on separate devices and microphones. Why you see, I do it here on Your Mac Live before every show. You'll see that clapper board, and it's got take the name of the movie, the director, take 3, scene whatever, and it's got those colored codes on it, and they snap it like that, and that's to sync the audio and the video. So if you remember to do that with your video, you'll make your job a lot easier trying to sync your iPhone audio and your camera video. A better idea would be to get a external microphone for your camera. And depending on what you're shooting, you can use different kinds of microphones. There's things called shotgun mics, which are those long, skinny ones you've seen. There are mics that sit just on top of inside the hot shoe, so they sit on top. You could wirelessly mic somebody if you wanted to, depending on what kind of stuff you're shooting for your kids. There's all kinds of different ways to get that video directly in, get that audio directly in the video. So either try the syncing with the clapper, you bring it into iMovie, and as two separate files, a movie file and an audio file, bring them into iMovie, and then just basically slide them around until they sync up. Like I said, doing the clapping thing would help you a lot, or better would be to use an external microphone to get that stuff directly onto the camera. Stephen Chalkwin, I want to create high quality, gallery quality photographic images. The photographs will be highly manipulated, should probably be raw. I need guidance, hardware, including camera. Oh, dear God. Seriously? I have a late 2013 Retina MacBook Pro, 13 inches, 13-inch screen, 8 gigs of memory, 500 gig of storage. I want to stay with the MacBook Pro. What's the sweet spot between price and quality for a display this size? What about printers for gallery quality poster sizes? Oh, my God. My first question, Stephen, would be, why do you want to stay with the MacBook Pro? Unless you need portability, go with an iMac. If only because the iMac is going to be a bigger screen. Or go with the MacBook Pro and an external monitor. Because it sounds like, well, for the kind of stuff you want to do, you want screen real estate. That's the single most important thing. RAM and screen real estate. So I would, first of all, unless you need the portability of a MacBook Pro, I would definitely go with an iMac. That's going to be the biggest thing for me. Stuff it full as much RAM as you can. I'm going to assume that you're going to be using Photoshop or Lightroom. Printers for gallery quality, poster size prints. Oh, the other thing is to get yourself a monitor calibrator too. I think they're a couple $100 and it will calibrate your monitor with your printer. I don't know. I can't be 100% certain, but I know I've used and liked another fine art photographers like the Epson R series. Their high-end series. It'll print 13 by 19. It'll print borderless. It'll print on sheets. So if you're looking for that kind of stuff, that's might be the way to go. But initially, I would say look to off-site printing. Look to sending your prints out to a professional, high-quality printing company. That might be better for you right now than spending $2,000 on a printer and all the hassles that's going to be. My camera is a Sony RX100 III, a great small camera that takes crisp, deep photos. But if I'm going to be producing poster or bigger images, do I need something different? I don't know about the Sony RX100 III. I don't know what the megapixels on that one is. I'm going to do a real quick search and see if I can't come up with that number of megapixels for that particular camera. Let's just see real quick what it's a Sony CyberShot. Looks like it's got 20 megapixels. 20 megapixels is probably fine depending on how big you want these prints. Stick with the Sony for the time being. If it takes the pictures you like with the good color that you like, stick with that one for the time being because that's the camera you know for the time being. Don't bother going out and buying a new fancy camera until you know that you're going to need a new, bigger, fancier camera. Give that a shot. Good luck, Stephen. Let me know how you get on. Folks, I want to say thanks very much to Jim Dalrymple for being on the show tonight. We're done. Thanks very much also to Dan Moren. Remember the book, The Caledonian Gambit, will be available on Amazon on May 23rd. So pick it up. I think it's going to be a good one. The description of it on the website sounds very interesting. And hopefully it's not an ongoing series that Dan is going to wrap it up all in one book. I'm looking forward to reading it. So thanks very much to Dan for being on the show. And again, please send off your condolences to my good friends at Negrino, at Dory if you're on Facebook, or look up Dory Smith. Sorry, at Negrino, at Dory, D-O-R-I, on Twitter. Send them your thoughts and good wishes, because Dory is really going to need it. Or look her up on Facebook at Dory Smith on Facebook. Wayne just said in the Slack chat room, Shawn, this is your job. I have no idea what he means. No clue what he means by that. He's typing. We'll wait. Reminding people. Yes, that's right. It's my job to remind people. If you have any questions about flashes or about photography or anything else like that, as always, please send me emails. I love helping you guys out, figuring this stuff out. That's another one of my jobs, is to help you guys figure out how to take better images. So Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Thanks very much to you guys for being tuned into the show, whether you're listening in via the archive or listening in via the live show. I love you folks who tune in via the live show. You guys are my absolute favorites. As always, until next week, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!